it was a long time ago and things were different back then. There wasn't as much transport, so it was pretty isolated. I was raised on a sheep farm and we'd only go into Penishore like once a week on Saturday to play sport other than the school bus picking us up. And I love the environment. We'd go, because it's near Penishore, the beaches are everywhere and would ramble around. I felt connected to the community. I was at school, it was only a small school, maybe, but even with the baby boom and after the war, there was only say 120 students. About a third of them had my last name, another third were related through marriage, and the next third were new people. They might have only been in the town for under 20 years. So it was a sense of connection, and it was funny because I felt safe because virtually everyone, whether they're related or not, you'd call them auntie and uncle. And people looked on you as sort of their nieces and nephews on the whole. So I felt sort of safe and connected. And so when, years later I got into law school, I felt like the whole town were proud of me and I felt good. And also, I think I was a fairly quiet, bookish child, but reflecting on it, I realised that I probably blossomed more in some ways than if I'd been in the city because there are not that many people, so you have to step up. And so the school was so small that I was given leadership positions. So it's a different childhood. It's decades before, but it's also an isolated community, which is, I don't know. I've done research and I've realised that by accident, a lot of the elements that I was experiencing are things that are good for you, like the learning resilience and realising that bad things happened because you'd see the animals die and you're more aware of death in the community because it was a small community. And the connection and feeling like you're connected and having to step out of your comfort zone, which I did because you had to. So I don't know if that explains, but yeah, I feel very blessed. But I'm glad that the connection to the mainland's better now that I'm an adult. Small communities can have their downside because people know each other's business. So that aside, I think there's so much benefit. I know as a child I felt safe, secure, encouraged, that I was part of a connected community that and a sense of self-efficacy, or that we got together, camaraderie and cooperation to make things happen. But because things often didn't happen unless the community made it happen, especially back then. So, and I know it made me feel safe and like I had roots, and I know people, myself and others included, go back to, even now as older people, to feel that sense of connection. So when I moved to Adelaide, it felt weird to me that there wasn't that sense of we've got each other's back, we're all in this together, if bad things happen, it's okay. And so I thought, well, that was my mantra, I think, which I hadn't realised until later, but in my head was, let's take Main Street, Penishore, to wherever you go. And so by accident, I got in a leadership position at a women's community centre that I'd just been a participant. And before I knew it, I was pulling together programs and writing grants and doing things. And there were women from country areas and interstate and overseas, and they were seeking connection. And I think subconsciously I was thinking, well, what are all those elements? What? And so I was trying to foster that feeling that we're all in this together, and what commonalities do we have? And a lot of it was we're all mums and we want the best for our kids. And often I would, if if I could get grants for cooking or singing, or like, they weren't necessarily learning big things, but it was about connection altogether. And I would just create great joy if I'd managed to pull together, 3 or 4 activities for the day, and I'd go in one room and there'd be singing and there'd be cooking, and then people were learning about parenting or whatever. And then I'd learned how to write grants, and so I'd set up a grant writing committee. And one day I got an email from a young mum. She was doing that, for her community, and she said, I'm in, I don't know, she was in Canada. I think her husband worked for a mining community, and she said, you know what, Mandy, that grant writing that I learned from you, which I'd learned from someone else, we got a playground here in Canada. And I thought, that's what it's about. It's about feeling empowered that you can make a difference and create a community. So I think that's sort of connection, feeling empowered that you can make a difference, that we can be the change. That's what it's about to me, Main Street, Penneshaw. Well, it was actually by accident. The school at Penneshaw only goes up to year 10, so I had to come to Adelaide, and I went to a boarding school, and there was a girl from, I think she was up the mid-north, and she said, I'm going to apply for law. And I thought, I hadn't thought of that. I'll put that on my list of things to apply. As it is, she ended up being a nurse or something she wanted to do instead, and I got it accepted into law, and I thought, oh gosh, and because there were so many choices. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll have a go. And it was a little bit scary when I went to law school, because before I went to school in Adelaide, I hadn't been to Adelaide much. And in boarding school, we were kind of locked up most of the time. So it was a big thing for me. And so I was really lucky though. In the first week of law school, I met other country girls, and we kind of hung out together. And funnily enough, like all those decades later, we still meet like once a month. I'm meeting them on Monday, I think. So that helped. And I kind of took it, I'd heard on the grapevine from someone on the island who had a friend that had started law, and because there's not much, there's not a lot of contact hours, and the guy had just had a great time and then flunked out. I thought, well, I better learn from that. So I thought, well, it's going to be a 9-to-5 job, so I'd go in there and I'd be in the law library and just work at reading all the cases and then going to the lectures. And I was lucky, I didn't have a job. I was lucky at that because we were remote. The government were paying like remote persons living allowance. I was also lucky that my parents, they sold a little bit of land and bought a fairly cheap house, but it was good enough so that I could play mum and look after my younger brothers. So, and we'd get meat from the farm and buy up all the specials, but we managed to live a pretty good life. And I didn't do brilliantly at law, because I did feel out of my depth, and I did feel that my education had suffered a little bit at Penneshaw. Like the teachers did the best they could, but we didn't have a lot of, we might have one teacher for three classes and things like that. But there was a couple of things that got me through law school. One was a woman from my hometown who, I think she was trying to be nice, but it sort of upset me. When she learned I'd got into law school, she said, well, it's nice for girls to try these things. And that was like, well, I better get through. And the other thing is, if you didn't pass the subject, you had to come back and resit it. So I'm thinking, to come back from summer holidays on Kangaroo Island, which was hard back then. It was a big procedure. So I made sure I got through every class, so that's the story of law school. was born a very curious child and drove my parents mad for saying why, myself all the time. And I worked my way through, I think it was called the Institute Library at Penneshaw. And then I learnt, I put my name in this international children's magazine and got pen friends from all over the world. So I was always wanting to learn. And I sort of muddled into law school and then and worked as a researcher. So I was always educated because I'd been a researcher, so I was always learning more. And then sometimes it was just, I would be in a situation, I think, I don't know how to cope with this, or I'd be able to cope with it better if I learned more. So, for instance, I was a mum and I thought, well, my children are just starting kindy and things, actually it was before that. So I would learn about parenting, and then I was involved in a community centre. Oh, it might help them if I know about grant writing, or I could run a course if I learned how to run a course. And then I became accidentally involved in management. So someone from the community houses said, it might help you if you did a diploma in community service management, because that might help you. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then I realised I was an accidental counsellor, because some of these women had been traumatised, domestic violence also. Oh well, I'll do a postgrad in counselling. So I did that. And then, I don't know, my mother, bless her, saw an ad saying that, because I was volunteering at the time, saying, volunteers could get a partial scholarship to this new university, Carnegie Mellon, in public policy and management. And so I went to the open day thing. Before I know it, I'm enrolled. It was the hardest thing in my entire life, well, one of the hardest things, but I don't regret it, because I came in contact with people from all over the world that were doing marvellous things, like trying to stop malaria for pregnant women in Tanzania, and to get people in Cambodia back to education because a lot of the parents were frightened of their children having education after Pol Pot's regime. So I was sort of driven by the needs, and then often the education would drive me to the next bit, because then I was educated there, and I thought, well, I'm educated in public policy, and what do I do next? So I applied for a few, and I got a job at Safe Work. And then they were saying, if you're working here, you can do work health and safety certificate or diploma or something. And I'll do that. That'll be useful. So I did that. And then after that, I got a job at managing a registered training organisation. And I thought, it'd be good if I got a certificate in training and assessment. So I did that. And then some of the students were troubled. It was a trouble. And I thought, I better shape up on my counselling skills. So I went and got more counselling skills. And then I thought, this counselling, I'm not sure. I think coaching might be better. So I went and got coaching skills. So it just kind of drifted. Whenever I saw, this might help me be better at what and I just love learning anyway. I mean, I'm a curious person, and it's a good excuse, but I've maybe I just justified it, and I've told myself no more studies for a while, but I'm really blessed, because now I keep raving on about ChatGPT, because I can ask anything and learn anything at the moment. So yeah, but I tell my family, just stop me, don't let me enroll in one more course. So that's the story of my education. Well, not to dwell on it too long, but when I was in early 50s, my marriage broke up. It had been really hard going, because my in-laws had a lot of health issues, and it brought a lot of strain and everything. So, and I was pretty gutted. And about the same time, my children got jobs interstate and partners and things. So I was an empty nester, and I was pretty flat. I was thinking, oh my goodness. But I was so lucky. I've got a really supportive family. My mum came up from Kangaroo Island because I wasn't even eating, so she made sure I ate my veggies. And then when the house had to be sold, well, my dad came up too, and they helped me, get things ready for sale. And I'm really lucky. I've got beautiful friends I've collected over the years from all my adventures. And so they were supportive, including, even my yoga buddies that I've known for years. So I was encouraged to go to yoga because I could have my coffee with my friends after. I also called on, I thought, well, this is a pretty significant thing, so give yourself a break, kiddo. So I thought, I'll go and get therapists and whatever. And I went to a psychologist, I think, and a counsellor. But the funny thing is, one of the most useful people for me was an art therapist. And the most useful thing she said to me is, you'll get through this, because I've seen so many get through it, and I know you've got it in you, and just keep going. And that, I don't know, all the, 10 years or more later, I remember that, and in a kind way, I try to be there for other people when they're going through tough times too, to say, without going, oh, well, pull up your socks, kind of bring out this resilience and the strength they've got in them. The other thing, well, one of my friends, she tried the tough love approach, and she said, come on, you're being a brat, you can get over this. After that, she said, not long after, she said, let's start up a meetup, or let's start running courses, because she'd had experience. She used to work for COPE, or Relationships Australia, so she had experience running courses. So she sort of mentored me to be a better trainer. I was a good researcher, so we just started a meetup called A Happy Second Life, and it sort of healed me, because a lot of the people that came had been going through what I'd gone through, so it was sort of healing, because I wanted to help them. So I learned strategies to help them, and in helping them, it cheered me up. And I try not to be a hypocrite. I try to actually walk my talk, so that was good too. Well, with my friend Deb, we started up A Happy Second Life, and that is aimed at people who maybe that some of their transitions in life might be in their personal life or their professional life, or it could just be a middle quarter life crisis, and people realise, oh well, I thought there'd be more to life than this. But we're really passionate about proactive ways of people being happier and investing in their well-being, and also creating sort of a community that people feel like they're supportive. And we, like, the group norms are very strict, that people, they must be respectful and encouraging, and so people can come and they have a chat. We have themes and talk about whatever it is. It might be our rubbish thinking that's not helping us, or whatever. And then so we talk about the particular topic, and then we get people to go into pairs or small groups and sort of brainstorm how they can integrate that into their lives. So that's what I do with Deb. And I'll just add, I love collaboration. If I can find kindred spirits who are wanting to use their curiosity and their kindness in their community development, well, I'm in there with bells on. So I, not long ago, maybe 3 years ago, I enrolled in a course I'd forgotten to tell about. It's the Be Well plan as a trainer at Samari, and I met a beautiful girl called Jen, who's an occupational therapist, and we just got on so well that we're kind of a bit crazy together, just like Deb and I are. And we came up with this idea, and we got a business name and called Live Kind Co. And so we, as well as delivering Samari courses, we're developing our own courses. And our main passion are people that are at the cold front of caring. One of our main areas of interest is compassion, fatigue and burnout for heart-centered people. So because she's an occupational therapist and I hang around coaches and counsellors, and just like there's so many people, especially in these more since COVID, and people are more stressed because they're dealing with distressed people. So Jen and I are delivering courses, and not so much lately because we've both been busy, but we also pulled together a mental health network, and where we get mental health practitioners from all over the state and have guest speakers on how to use positive psychology and preventative measures, because there are so many people working in education, and they're counsellors and social workers, and so we're kind of wanting to help the people by bringing speakers, but also we always say, and remember, you're the carers, care for yourself. The other thing, I think the theme is about gentle people. I'm thinking about it because the third one I'll talk about is the Kind Men's Club, which is sort of, and it hasn't been big, and I've been a little bit patchy lately, but I feel, because I'm a gentle person myself, and there's literature on highly sensitive people and whatever, but men don't necessarily want to be called sensitive, so I thought, well, gentle or kind, and they seem to resonate with that, so that's okay. So in A Happy Second Life, I put out some brochures, and I got some men coming along, and I'd run it via Zoom, and we would just talk about things, because they're deep thinking and empathetic men, but we're still in a culture, I think Australia is still not as, it's not as easy to be a gentle, deep thinking, empathetic man as maybe it could be. So it's sort of, and so I talk about, I love researching, as I said, so we'll talk about themes, or we might just kick around ideas, or they might have, something happen with their kids or their partner, or and just helping them brainstorm, if they want to brainstorm some ideas and things like that, to just a kind of a space where it's okay to be you, and encourage it, because we all sometimes need some encouragement, but also some of it, well, none of us learned all the skills. We didn't get we learned reading, writing, arithmetic, but we maybe didn't learn about assertiveness or self-compassion, or so these are the kind of themes that run through all the things I run, either by myself or with other people, about particularly people who are a bit hard on themselves, are wanting to be good people for their families, their communities, would like to make a difference in the world, but maybe they're a little bit timid, maybe they've been kicked around, maybe they were at a school or even in a family where gentleness was regarded as, well, just pull up your socks. So that's my passion, and every time I think up some new idea for some new course or something, I think that's the underlying theme, that bringing gentle people to the table, because I think the world as it is actually needs the gentle people to feel empowered to speak up and become leaders, and that's what drives me. Well, yeah, I feel really blessed to be working in a team, and a lot of it is volunteering because I feel so passionate about it. I think the aim was to have an affordable way that people could, and they could be private about it too, because they could do scenarios and things and go, oh yes, I might be, actually it might help me, I might be a bit of a people pleaser, it might help me a bit if I learned a few skills to be a little bit more assertive, or I might have anger issues, it might be, it's not working for me and the family. I've noticed people aren't very happy with me. So we're not even in beta testing, the team, and we're kind of all pulling our hair out because, you know, this is a new thing and who knows if we're trusting of the work, but we're all very passionate about making things affordable. Like we were at a team meeting yesterday and we're thinking, wouldn't it be great if it could go to developing countries? And I'm there, well, I'm a country person at heart. Wouldn't it be great if you could be wherever and it was virtually free and you could just help yourself and feel supported? And because as I keep saying, there's nothing really wrong with us usually. Maybe we just haven't learnt the life skills. Maybe we weren't taught, modelled, encouraged to, for example, be assertive or to be able to manage our anxiety. And it's not a mental health, you know, we're very clear and careful that it's not a mental health app as such. It's more but no, anyone can learn to turn down the stress dial, because having the stress dial turned up full bore doesn't help. And I know, because I'm particularly enjoying kind of contributing anything that's my issue. Like I suspect I've got a bit of ADHD, so I'm there, oh, well, you know, we better have a bit about being disorganised in there. So some of it's what I'm contributing is about my problems. So I'm having more fun and hopefully getting to sort things out for myself. So I think, now I've forgotten what the question was. Was that the question? I can imagine it at some stage. I'm still, because I'm a grandma now, and the grandchild is on this side of the water. So, but I can imagine going back, and I can imagine how different it would be from when I was a young girl, because I've learned how to Zoom, I've learned how to email, and I can see, and there are cafes over there that weren't there when I was a little girl. So I can visualise myself sitting at a cafe in Main Street, Pennyshore, maybe looking over and seeing a cousin or a second cousin, so feeling connected to nature and all the things I know are good for me and I love, but also being able to be connected to the world. And maybe even, I can imagine, I'm hoping that I'll live into long old age, and I can imagine myself 85 and still writing a blog and having a picture of Pennyshore and having encouraging words, and might even be able to run a course by Zoom online. So yeah, I think that could be on the agenda.